Hi, thank you for coming. My name is Fredrik Rutz, and I'm the organizer of EdTech Malmö that takes place here at Foo Café at random intervals, I wouldn't say. Every 6 weeks, I'd say. Nice of you to come. Today, we're going to talk about bridging the digital divide, and we have Tshepiso Lehutjo, who will do it because she's really great, and she's also really, really interested in how to make the computers accessible to everybody, I would say. So, please, welcome Tshepiso.
Okay. Hello, friends, in person and on the internet. It's so great that some people can see me on the internet, right? And that's kind of what today is going to be about. You know, just having people be able to watch this is already an opportunity that a lot of others don't. And we're going to try and discuss and like figure out and maybe even brainstorm how that can be bridged either today, tomorrow, or in the near future. Okay. So I'm going to start by asking, have you watched the presentation? Oh, this is amazing. Because then I was supposed to summarize it and, you know, I kind of wasn't ready for that. So I'm going to firstly start with maybe briefly discussing why I care about bridging the digital divide. Here at where Foo Café is hosted is also where Go210 is, which I think is such an amazing technology like hub. And I was on their website one time reading their blogs, and I found a weird fact that actually internet is a human right. And I was like, this is where we're at right now, that internet is actually a human right. So having access to the internet has become put on the table to say that, you know, there are some people that, you know, are detractors and they don't think it should be, but that we're having this conversation that it could possibly be a human right is something that's quite big. And then we realize that some people don't have it, right? Which means they have limited access to information, limited access to like maybe health tech, which in some places actually could be a good thing because the actual infrastructure of hospitals and, you know, medical facilities are not there. So maybe that could even fill in those gaps. But if you did then watch the video, I want to start by asking you guys, right? If you are politicians, big people, which of these causes of digital divide do you think we should address first? Like which ones are kind of the most pressing, or maybe one that would fix the others, right? So if I go through the list, we have physical access, right, which is like actually having a laptop, having a phone. Then we have financial access, which is then linked with your socio-economic circumstances, like do you have the money to pay for the internet and such things. Then your social demographic access, which I think is kind of linked with the financial one as well, but also just like, you know, what your conditions are, where you live. Cognitive access, your ability to like, you know, have the, like we need first to have information, like some sort of IT literacy before we're able to use a computer. Design access, you know, like for, you know, people, we have different abilities, physical and learning abilities as people. So should we address the design of computers, the design of, you know, logging into Wi-Fi sort of things. Institutional access, which is like, where do people get a computer? Like, for instance, like where do people start learning about computers? Is it at school? Is it in libraries? Is it at home? You know? Political access, this is the hairy one. But now that you might be like a big person in this scenario, right? How does the political stance of a country affect access to digital infrastructure? And then as well as cultural access, which I think this one I took for granted, right? Because I can speak English and I can move around in English. And I'm sort of, yeah, I could call myself a person in the modern world, right? But then there's some people who are not in the modern world, and maybe some people who English is not necessarily like their go-to language, but the internet, when you have translation, the translation list is quite limited, right? So how am I on the internet if I can't translate whatever's there into my language, right? So things like that are quite interesting. So I'm asking now the audience, am I asking on YouTube too? Yes, okay. So I'm asking everyone, which of these, and yeah, just tell me why you would go for the one that you pick, like off the top of your head. Yes. Lisa. Good.
So, for something? No. No. Okay. So, I mean, in an ideal world, I think we should definitely address all of them at the same time because
Yeah.
they all have something very important in them.
Mhm.
But if I had to choose, it would be number 2, financial access, or 3, socio-demographic access, which, as you said before, I think that they're linked.
Yeah.
But that's because I think that if you have the financial access, then you can also have the physical access in some way, and then eventually perhaps you will have access to education as well, and that will deal with number 4, which is the cognitive access.
Yeah.
And perhaps not so that wouldn't be related so much to the number 5, design. But I think that the other ones are an important first step to get more people into tech, and then of course deal with all the other issues that are important to integrate everyone.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. No.
that's what I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a?
Yeah, I also agree that financial access is a really big thing because once we have the financial means to buy a computer or like to install internet at home, that's a start. I also think institutional access is important, the way that we learn. For example, when I was in elementary school or primary school, we didn't have access to technology education or computers, so it wasn't until I was in middle school that I had my first computer class.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that's, I think it's vital for, to democratize the access to technology.
Sure.
Then I have to differ from you else and say number 7, political access.
Okay.
But I think that's some kind of the base for all the others. If you don't have the politicians and the means to provide funds and provide infrastructure and provide everything else, then you will have a very hard time to achieve anything of the else,
Yeah.
I think.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't catch your name. When? Johan. Okay, nice. I agree with everyone because I do believe the financial access will at least give you the confidence, to engage in the space, right? However, as I mentioned in the presentation, then there's only so much I can do as a citizen. I can have for instance, when I'm in South Africa, I go to the city and I have the laptop. I leave Sweden, I'm going home to visit. I have the laptop, I have my phone, I'm ready to work, and then there's no internet, And I mean, I'm financially, I'm good. I'm prepared on my side, but I'm in a space, or I'm in an area where broadband maybe has not been prioritized, the infrastructure has not been put up. I'm in a space where the political party maybe does not think that this is their priority for the space. So I agree with Johan as well that a lot of, I think, our ability to access also hangs a lot on whether or not the country the people in power find it a priority, right? And I think that leads me to my next question, like, why are we here okay, you came here to this discussion, like what made you also believe that digital divide is something that should be addressed, right? That's my reason why digital divide should be addressed. As I mentioned, like, I realized that human rights is actually, internet is actually a human right, right? And coming from South Africa, I know the disparities. Looking at my situation in Sweden and then looking in South Africa, I can see how there's a lot of things that people are missing out. Someone could have a really nice idea for an e-commerce shop, but they can't, and then they can't like increase their financial stance in life, So that's why I'm interested in this conversation, and I'd just like to hear a little bit, like, what makes you guys interested in the digital divide? Yeah, or how you came about thinking about it. Yeah? Takers? Yes.
I think that it's like the financial access is interesting, obviously. If you don't have the stuff, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
But that can also be done with internet as a service, basically, that you have internet cafes and you have and you share a phone and things like that. So you don't actually have to have your own stuff.
Yeah.
You can borrow other people's stuff.
Yes.
So in a way, I think cultural access is really interesting. If you don't speak English, so how large is the German internet, basically, or the Chinese internet? Or I can't access the Chinese internet. What's on it? I have no idea.
Could
Maybe
be
it's
some
more
interesting
interesting
stuff.
than the English internet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So the cultural access, I think, is really, really important. It's like, how do we get access to basically the page once it's up there? We've gotten the page in front of us, but how do we know what's on it?
Yeah.
Basically.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
sorry for interrupting.
No. And you know, on the point of culture, I mean, yes, there's languages and such, but even just what your community looks like and what your community feels about the internet, right? Because if the conversations aren't being had in your community, like if there isn't a tech culture, for lack of a better word, then even if I give you an internet, you're not, you know, there isn't it's not something that your community sees as important, right? Which like then you're missing sort of like a tech culture in your space. Like Malmo has a very big tech culture. You can't miss it. You can do whatever, you won't miss it. The culture of tech is here, and I guess there's that level as well. So that's very true. But yeah, so what made you interested in this talk about digital divide? What makes you, why is it important to you?
Okay. So first of all, I think that the reason why I'm here today and why I'm learning to code is because I live in Malmö. Like otherwise I wouldn't have gotten into the tech world. I don't think I would have found this path in Mexico. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here. But the reason why I'm specifically very interested in the digital divide is because, I mean, the reason is very similar to yours.
Yeah.
Because coming from Mexico, I can definitely see how there's so much inequality that is seen in different ways. And that one of those ways is through tech, like seeing how some people simply don't have access to it. We were discussing about it before, and we even talked about how some people don't even have light sometimes, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, considering how the world is developing and that tech is here and it's just going to increase, it's something that we need to address all around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just to add to that, like I said, I didn't start using computers until I was in middle school. But once I got into it, I kind of forgot what life was before a computer.
Yeah.
And because of the circles that I moved in, I kind of assumed that everybody has access to a computer. Everybody has access to internet, of course. But once you look at the general population, you realize that's not true, that you kind of live in a bubble, in a technology bubble, we can say. So I think it's super important because right now, that's kind of how you have access to information. That's, coming from a country that I'm coming from, sometimes the media is very biased and you don't get like the right information.
Yeah.
So you have the right to go and look for your own information.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's very important that everybody has access to internet.
For sure. I mean, even if you find the right person on Twitter who's ranting, you could get like a different perspective, right? It doesn't have to be a newspaper where you get some facts. But you just also need to.
And I totally agree with you, but also information, but also education today.
Yes.
Because it's like YouTube is an enormously big educator. Way bigger than all the universities, for instance.
Yeah.
And if you go there and you have the means to go there, you can actually learn whatever you want to learn. And I think that's so powerful that if we can get that to everybody, everybody can educate themselves or help educate each other.
Yeah.
And by that way, we can democratize the world and everything will be a better place.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes, our world is getting smaller.
Okay.
for each day,
Yes.
and we're getting more and more people. And to take care of our Earth and to actually get along with each other, we need to be well informed and trained and, as you say, educated.
Yes.
And I think that's an important thing to make sure that everybody has the possibility to get educated somehow. somewhere.
Yeah. No.
That's what interests me.
That's true. Okay, so this is all great. We're on the same page. Access is good. Okay. But, and the second part of the discussion is the infrastructure issue, right? I mean, like you say, you were in middle school before you got access to a computer. Looking back, but you were young, but looking back, before you got your hands on that computer, do you think there were other ways of getting getting some sort of technology information or engaging in any way?
Yeah, I was lucky that a few blocks from my house there was a library, so that's where I will
Right.
go. And if I had to do like a school project about some subject, I will go and look for books.
Okay.
It will, of course, take me an eternity to find something, but I was able to do it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's really good. Yeah, because I think now the challenge is if our politicians have not prioritized some aspects of the infrastructure, then how can people start engaging with some digital skills, right? And the one that we're going to focus on, and I'm glad you guys are also learning how to code. I was also learning how to code. So, Johan, are you learning how to code? Not anymore, but that's good. Okay. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, how can people learn how to code if they don't? In our situation, let's say they don't have a laptop, right? And there's different levels. You cannot have a laptop, then. So if I just have a phone and mobile internet, how can one? I think number one, firstly, what inspires one to learn how to code? When that's like where your technology limitation ends. And then once you are inspired, how do I get started? Like, where do I go? How do I get started, right? And this is what another part of what I do is interested in. So if I speak briefly about the inspiration part, I've started a little project in South Africa where I introduce innovations that are related to coding to schools that maybe not have the infrastructure to kind of teach children how to code. So maybe the computers are not so good and so forth. So we try to find like low effort innovations that can just inspire and get like the brain to, you know, to want to think about it more, right? Do you guys have examples of some tools that you've used on your phone, just on your phone and mobile internet to kind of learn how to code, or did you go straight to laptop and Wi-Fi? Johan, probably laptop and Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I started to code back in 1982.
Okay.
And there were no mobile phones that were able to code on.
Aha.
So that was
That's
not even
interesting.
laptops.
Okay. So you were learning to code on?
Yeah, computer started to turn up in Swedish schools back in the early 80s. And I was an early adopter, so this was a
That's good.
funny thing to play with.
All right. And like, so you saying you're an early adopter, what made you be an early adopter? Is it your parents were into it, or?
That's a good question. I don't
Yeah,
know really.
you don't know.
Weren't that early.
Okay.
Bit early maybe, but not that early.
Okay. But you were curious enough.
Yeah, probably.
And it worked out for you.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And Priscilla and Lisa, it was just laptop? That's when you started coding? That was your first experience?
To be honest, it never crossed my mind to start coding on my phone. It was just straight to the laptop.
Yeah.
Yes.
In my case, I did try an app in my phone, the Solo Learn. I think it was in your presentation
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yes, that one to
Yes.
the right.
Yeah.
I tried it once, but then I think that since I have access to the computer as well, then I ended up choosing the computer.
The
instead.
computer
Yeah.
as well. Yeah. Okay.
But it was a good option.
But so Solo Learn was on the phone then?
Yes.
You're doing it on the phone?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And do you feel you were able to learn something?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perhaps I
Okay.
just stopped using it because I started full coding. So not
Okay.
really because it wasn't good. It was
Okay.
good, and I thought it was yeah, nice to have it accessible anywhere you are.
Yes.
Yes.
That's so very true. That's
Mm.
very true. Yeah. Frederick, do you have anything to say? No.
Not really.
Okay.
I started coding too on desktop
Okay.
computers.
Okay. I'll be honest. I started on the phone, but that's because I saw somebody post that they were on an app. They were using an app. Besides that, I would not have thought about downloading an app to learn how to code. I really just was curious, like, what is this person doing? And I started using it, but I didn't catch on. However, I think it's good. I think it's a good way, even if, when you're coding on the computer, it's especially maybe I'm someone who's doing front end. So it's nice to code here and see what I'm coding on that side. And that's what some people say about coding on a laptop. But, just learning the terminology of some of the code language, you don't need a screen. You don't need that whole setup, right? So I think even the way we go about talking about digital skills also has to change, right? So digital skills is not just coding, but it's also like the theory behind it, the thinking behind it. There's things like software architecture that I didn't even know, and that you can read in a book, right? So you don't need to start coding about it. So I think even the way we talk about digital skills, maybe we've put a lot of emphasis on the infrastructure. And that's maybe something that hinders people from starting if they don't have maybe the laptop or the right Wi-Fi and tools. And but like I was saying, I think just being curious and inspiring can go a long way. Okay, so I'm just also going to, while we are on the examples, right? So we've talked about apps, the phones, like some of us have tried it on the phones, and there's pros and cons to the phones. So I'm just going to continue about what other options there were. I found this to be, I was blown. I was like, I should have thought about I should have thought about that. I would be so cool right now. I'm like, yeah, who doesn't, I don't, look, we'll be driving in South Africa, and we'll be like driving some poor places. But every house has a TV. Every house has a TV. No doubt. And I'm like, where are we getting the money for the TV though? But every house has a TV. And there'll definitely be some phones there. So putting together a phone and a TV, and then you have like a magic. I like that so much, right? And it's a startup from India. So obviously the people there have recognized the lack of physical access, right? And I don't know how much it is. I did not convert it, but I'm sure it's relatively affordable, right? All you have to do is convince some people to not watch something on TV for a few hours. But what do you guys think about this innovation? Or do you have other innovations that you've seen, that you've come across, and you'd be like, that is actually quite super cool? Yeah. I only recently understood. No, actually, let me not say understood. Someone vaguely told me that whatever Elon Musk is doing, besides the cars, besides the Twitter, he's somehow making it possible that you can get internet in places. Frederick, do you know what it is? Can you?
It's satellites.
Oh, it's satellites.
It's going to put satellites all over the world, and then you have a special receiver transmitter that is as big as a normal smartphone, and you can get on the internet wherever you are in the whole world, basically.
Wow.
Above the surface of the water.
So then we bypass political access?
Basically, I'd say, yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to have a national subscriber to get on the 4G network. You get on Elon Musk's network instead. It's
right.
When you say bypass political things, yeah, okay, he's not a politician, obviously.
Yeah, okay. But we bypass the dependency on our governments to put in the infrastructure.
Countries, borders, yes.
Okay,
yes.
That's really good. That's like digital without borders.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's probably going to be quite expensive to begin with, but I think he opened up for the Ukraine now.
Yes.
Right now.
Yes.
For free, I think.
Yeah. All right.
So it is possible to open it up.
Yeah. Okay. So then that's one way that I guess our conventional infrastructure is like how somebody is finding another way to make the digital divide like less, right? But yeah, are there any other ones that you have come across, or do you have any thoughts about this one? I mean, one of my thoughts about this, I think, how many laptops does a household have at some point? You know, sometimes we have like old laptops and nobody's really using it, and we're keeping it because, well, what do we do with it? And it still has some photos. And I thought this was, it goes really well as well with sustainability. We are using is it an appliance? Is TV an appliance? Okay. We're using something for dual purposes, right? And I think that I that's one of the things that I was like sitting, I was like, that's really actually cool. Then we don't need a I mean, some of us, you know, some students, your laptop is also your TV, because you have now streaming, you're watching YouTube, you're watching Netflix, everything's on your laptop, you don't have a thing. So is your laptop not a TV at some point, right? And this kind of flips it around. Yeah, but okay, I've said what I've said. So you guys tell me what you think about it, and like if it's something you would have considered maybe before you had access.
To just continue on this, there
Yeah.
are actually two ways.
Yeah.
If you have a not even modern Android phone, can be a couple of years ago, you can actually plug in a mouse and a keyboard directly into the phone,
Okay.
and you will get the cursor on the screen, and you can use it as a computer,
Okay.
more or less. And then you could, for instance, use a Chromecast to transfer wirelessly to the TV
Yeah.
without the box even.
Really. So
That's a cheap solution.
you
Then
have
what you do need is probably some app that supports.
yes.
That's the easy part. basically.
Okay.
But most people don't know that you can actually plug in a mouse
No.
into a telephone and get the
No.
cursor to move around.
Okay. That's really cool. So then if you have an app, then you can find a program. Like if there's an app where you're learning to code and it's kind
Yeah.
of compatible with the phone, you
Actually, a text editor you could use. Then
Yes.
you need some way to run it. But there are plenty of web services that you can type directly into and.
I'm gonna write
get
this
stuff
down.
running again.
Frederick, I'm writing this down. This is good. This is really good.
And the other thing regarding infrastructure is that there have been work done. I haven't found an actual working example, but if you talk about the technology called peer-to-peer, where you don't have a central server, but each telephone finds the next telephone in the line. So the telephones in an area connect to each other
Yes.
and build their own network, basically, which can reduce the need for a central or for infrastructure
Okay.
in a deserted areas
Yes.
or where you don't have infrastructure.
Yeah.
Maybe you have one point to the internet somewhere
Yeah.
that someone is connected to, but then next one is connected to that one, and so on.
Jump.
So you can build your own networks
Nice.
without having the infrastructure. And then
Okay.
there are apps that use this technology,
Okay.
not for maybe for talking, but for communicating.
Uh-huh.
And I also found there is a company in US, I think, that sells phones that use this technology. That
Okay.
don't need a SIM card, you don't need
Uh-huh.
a subscription.
Yeah.
That it depends on finding other phones of the same area and build their own network that's
Nice.
dynamically
I had no idea.
constructed.
Okay.
I know that that's been quite a lot of trials, both in Africa and in India and other areas with these technologies,
Yeah.
peer-to-peer technology.
Okay. Peer to peer. Nice. I get the sense that like communal is like it's like a theme. Like sort of, you know, if financially alone you can't do it, then how can we make something shareable so that it, you know, the financial is spread across, or like there's a peer to peer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Just to comment on this invention,
Yeah.
I just think of in Mexico during the pandemic, of course, classes were suspended, kids were not going to school,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of kids who had no access to a computer. They were doing their homework on their parents' smartphones. And I think in those cases, this invention would come very, very handy.
Yeah.
Because like you said, everybody, and especially in Mexico, everybody has access to a TV.
Yeah.
So my only question is, can you use, does it have to be like a modern TV, or can it be like a...
They say, you know, and I'm not marketing for them here, and this is going to be on YouTube, but they say that works on any TV. I don't know what a CRT is. Fat one. So it doesn't have to be that Samsung HD curve kind of TV, but it seems like it works on anyone. So yes, I think they've taken that into account as well. But very true about, and I think, you know what, the pandemic really was the peak of, oh my gosh, the digital divide is shit. Like, that was when it was like, well, if you thought you were going to run away from this now, it's just exposed everything, right? But I mean, the pandemic exposed a lot of things, but that's very true. And I was also speaking with Frederick when we're done recording. So, of course, you know, coding, like this is maybe something that's really would be helpful for children especially, like, right? Because as we get older, maybe we then find jobs and we just have to sort of inspire ourselves and how we're gonna start learning to code. But then I was talking to Frederick and I was like, now with the pandemic also, there's so much more, let's say, remote work. And I can say in all fairness, if I was living full time in South Africa, I would not be confident in a remote position. Because, like, I mean, if I can't get internet confidently all the time, then what does my productivity look like, right? And I actually had read a blog from someone in People on Culture who said some of the things that people need to consider as they want remote jobs is your location. And HR people know circumstances in certain countries, so you might not even be considered when you make an application for a remote role, because, like, I just know, well, I mean, okay, maybe there could be bias, maybe you have your own little setup with Elon Musk, but, you know, chances are, will you be able to work remotely? And now that comes back to that whole thing about we are now limited to some opportunities, you know, to some of to now this like modern work culture thing. Now we start going to the office every day because we don't have reliable internet. Have you guys have you thought about that? Like how your remote, how opportunities in the remote world are limited by you know, the digital divide, basically. And I think it's an interesting conversation because it's just now coming up. Obviously, companies are also divided on, you know, are we going fully remote, are we not, and stuff like that. But I think maybe that kind of thing was a little bit forgotten, that remote does not mean you can work from anywhere, actually.
But I've actually thought a little bit about
Yeah.
it. But I think what needs to be done is to see, again, internet as a service, that you have maybe a small place where in a small town or a small village where in that place there is internet access. If you come in with your phone, you have internet access over mobile or whatever, and you also have computers that anybody can use or rent or whatever. And in that way, you create a working office, not for a company, but for the people who are actually working. And that you can do I'm sure in South Africa, and you can. There are small villages in Sweden where the internet access is so-so, even here.
Yeah.
And having that, you also get the other good parts of having a workplace, which is social life and meeting people and things like that when you want to.
Yeah.
But you would have internet in that place.
Yeah.
And that would be sure.
Yeah.
And that you could place in all over
Yeah.
the place. There were lots of places here, but that I think would work.
Yeah.
And would also then you could say, yes, I do have internet access. You would have to walk maybe 200-300 meters to the house, but you can sit there and work the whole day and then you go home.
Yeah.
Where you don't have internet access.
Yeah.
I think that could work.
Yeah. So again, communal, right? And it might actually be, I'm getting a sense that communal is sort of the solution into all of these things. Like we should stop looking at like personal laptop, personal this, personal that, and just like we are all in the same situation, you know, for most of us in this digital divide. Then how can we come together to solve the issue, right? So I think that little hub thing is a good business idea for those of us coming from those places. We should think about it.
So Go to10 is an example of that, right?
Exactly.
But because I remember when I told my parents that I was coming here to work or study, it was like, but how? How come there is a place like that?
Free.
And and free.
That one is
especially.
that one just throws me completely off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, think about when you talk about Go to10. I mean, I think it's so underestimated, especially because of the podcast studio. So those of you who don't know, like Go to10 is a place in Malmö, Linköping, and Stockholm. Again, I'm so good at marketing. I'm an ambassador. And they have 3D printers, they have internet, they have a cool machine that gives you free chocolates, and podcast studios, right? You could start your living, literally. You could start your living coming to Go to10 and making a podcast with some really interesting content, obviously, and for free. And I think that's what we need. You know, at some point you make your own money and you realize you don't want to come to Go to10 every day, but you would have gotten a good start, right? And again, that talks to the culture, the tech culture of places like Malmö. Yeah, so that's really true.
And I think it's really interesting, and the only thing that Go to10 lacks are CRTs, fat TVs. So,
Yeah.
but this notion of using your mobile phone as the actual computer is so interesting. It's like the newest iPads. They're as powerful as the laptops that they're selling.
Yeah.
So there's no difference, and the phones are almost as powerful as the laptops that are sold. So a smartphone, a modern smartphone, or even semi-modern smartphone, is all you need if you get the keyboard and the mouse and the screen, because still I think the smartphones and the tablets are more for consuming than production. A laptop is more for production, and if you're going to learn, you do need to produce stuff.
Yes.
Education is about not only listening, also producing. So I think this Indian thing is actually excellent. Or it's built in Android, but who wants an Android? Sorry, sorry YouTube, I didn't mean that. It's so because you can also move this.
Yes.
You go to your neighbor and then you have the same setup.
Yeah.
Because they have a TV.
Yeah.
And then you can study together with your neighbor.
For sure.
Which is extremely interesting.
Yeah.
I think.
I think it's very interesting as well. We should call them and host them next time on EdTech, right? Okay, so timekeeper, I don't know. But to wrap up, my last example was this one. And I mean, it's not related to the phone or anything, but it's such a notable situation, right? And it's really the backbone of what I think can help with the digital divide is people. It's knowledge transfer, right? And it's people that find that future generations, it's important that future generations are engaged in this conversation, and it's important that future generations do have access and opportunities. And I think that's what this teacher was trying to do here, right? This is by no means ideal, no means perfect, but I'm sure the conversations in and around class was basically understanding how Word works, right? And what you can do with it. And it's not going to be the first time when they see a computer, like it's not going to be brand new, right? And so I think, I want to say I came to Sweden, I had a computer, I had Wi-Fi, but it's only when I started talking to people did I know what to look for, or did I have like guidance, right? So I think we should not forget like the guidance and like just having a conversation with someone, whether or not they have the infrastructure, just having the conversation can actually create a sort of change. Okay, that is my time. But do you have questions for me? Because I've done a lot of asking. Yeah. Anyone? Okay, yes, comments are great as well.
More comments.
Yeah.
I like this approach, actually,
Mm-hmm.
because I've been teaching a lot of IT, but it's almost 30 years now, thank God. And my problem with both with IT teaching and IT support is when you try to tell someone how to print the document, for instance, in Word, they tend to make lists. Okay, one, find this menu, click on that one, click there, do that, and do that. And that might be fine, but then the version updates and something changes and your list doesn't work anymore. If you learn this way, then you learn a more abstract way. It's like driving a car. You know, okay, that should be a steering wheel normally in front of me. I find that one. Shift gear, okay, it's there, and the brake and the throttle and so on.
Yeah.
You learn these controls normally is there, and they look kind of like this. But if you then encounter different versions of the same or different word processing, you will get around because you know the concept.
Yeah.
You don't know the exact detail, but
Yeah.
you find your way around.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I think it's a good way to
It's
teach.
good. Yeah, it's good.
That's one thing. The other thing I came to my mind when I watched your presentation was there is a guy in India.
Okay.
What's his name now? I have written down.
Okay.
But he came up with a concept called hole in the wall,
Oh, okay.
where he actually put a computer in a wall
Okay.
in a slum area somewhere.
Okay.
I think it was in India or maybe in Bangladesh, and didn't do anything more. No instructions, nothing, but just a computer in a wall. And then the kids normally, the small kids, they found this, were curious, and they started to fiddle around with it
Yeah.
and teach themselves and each other how to use it,
Wow.
and then find more and more and got good at it.
Yeah.
And I think he made an award-winning TED Talk on
About
this
it.
subject in 2013.
Okay.
So if you Google
Hole in the wall,
in TED Talk,
India.
watch that one.
Nice.
Because that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Check his name.
Okay. That's really cool.
It's called
YouTube, we're looking for the name now.
Sugata Mitra. I wrote it down.
Sugata Mita.
But
Okay.
Hole in the Wall. it's
Hole
easy
in
to
the
come
wall.
and
I
TED
like
Talk,
that. Okay, good.
Very interesting.
I suppose in that sense, it's sort of like us, because, yeah, we have to be careful sometimes. You know, what we think is best might not always be what's best. So us, instead of us pushing our narrative, right, we just put the infrastructure there and then see what naturally comes to the community, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's another interesting thing of the digital divide, the one regarding age and how, as you were mentioning, it is the small kids who kind of find the way around the newest technologies,
Yeah.
and then they go ahead and teach their parents
Yeah.
or their grandparents, and I think that's, yeah, for many people it might be counterintuitive. How are you going to learn from a child? But, I
Yeah.
mean, it is what's happening.
Yeah.
so.
I mean, if there's one thing to make you like lose your ego, it's tech. For sure, for me, like, oh yeah, you 20, but can you help me with this thing? You know, like the roles get reversed real quick. Yeah. Yeah. Lisa, did you wanna? Oh.
Yeah, I have a. I'm curious about understanding more how your initiative works.
Mine. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. You know, thank you for asking, because I mean, I don't wanna again market it. But mine. So far, what I do, what the plan is to create a library of innovations. So right now I found a company to work with. It's one in Sweden, and I kind of got 15 of their little gadgets, all right? And their gadget is about teaching Python, and there's an app on the phone and blah, blah, blah. And I got 15 of those, and then I send them to SA, and I have like somebody I work with there, and then we just basically look for schools where a teacher, again, this comes very handy, where a teacher is motivated and is willing to, you know, learn a bit about it and then host a class or workshop. Okay, so we have a school that we're talking with. Again, you know, you think this and then you get onto the ground and it's such a totally different thing. So we just realized like their laptops are not compatible with what we are bringing, and so she's actually saying that, okay, you know what, I'll actually find laptops, I'll borrow from teachers, I'll find laptops and I'll host it with a few laptops, but I want to do this, right? And that's sort of the people that we're looking to work with. And then we also have an NGO which does similar things. They have workshops on Saturdays with technology, and then we're going to borrow them this as well. So I'm all about the communal thing because I can't afford to buy like a lot of these things. So we just basically move them around. And the idea is to then build a library of things. So then also get another set of technology and pass that around, and have the teachers, you know, show the kids and whatever, and just have like different technologies that people can try out and have access to for inspiration. Yeah, but that's the initiative.
I think that's a good place to take a pizza break.
Yes.
and continue the discussion.
Cool.
Tshepiso, thank you very much.
Yay.
Excellent.
Thank you.